a story. I'm not Peter. I'm just Peter's scribe. I'm just this guy. Yeah. Like, could you imagine? Like, we wouldn't have a gospel. You know what I mean? Like, that's all the gospel is, right? It's just people's personal accounts or secondhand accounts, but people just telling their stories.
Yeah, man.
You know, of where their life intersected with Jesus. Yeah. Like, your story of how you intersect with Jesus is every bit the gospel as Mark, Matthew, Luke, or John is.
That's crazy. I was just talking to a guy Sunday who almost said the same thing. He's a professional producer, and he's shifting to start empowering people to tell stories.
Yeah. So. Are we recording? Ah.
Look at that.
We'll hit go whenever you want to.
No, I hear it. Yeah, claps. Hey, so so here's the rules
of
the podcast. Okay, we have rules. Okay, yep. Now you've done your job, so everybody that comes has to hit the painting.
Really?
Try to knock it down. I tell everybody the same story. I thought these paintings were... I didn't know where they came from. Turns out they came from right downtown Franklin, like a local actual shop, and it's like a local artist. This Deanne is the best I can read out the corners. So the ones right behind your head. But so don't knock down Deanne's painting. All right, she worked hard on this, or he. I don't know. But I have no idea who the painter is. But we got a couple of them around the office. But
cool.
Yeah, no, man. Like, we do this because, so like I was telling you, like finding out people's stories matters, right? And look, you know, I don't know that anyone will ever, if no one ever watches this, well, cool. Well, then we've got your story on record. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying it's got to be the whole thing, because let's be fair, right? If you told your whole story, we'd sit here for hours. Yeah, so maybe we'll cut it up into pieces, and we'll have you keep coming back to keep telling us more of it. But it's like seeking out people, man, to just get their stories and care about what other people have gone through and hear those, you know, kind of the human experience, the human element of the gospel is so important, right? And telling our stories. So, yes, like, there's no rules here, man. Like, you can be like, don't cuss. We're going to try not to cuss a lot, because I think there's a certain point where you get like a rating, and I don't want to get those ratings.
Yeah.
Because
I only cuss at people that cut me off on the road, so we should be good here.
Well, yeah. Also, and by the end of this, I want to understand how we get just a cup of coffee. That's all I need.
How we get a cup of coffee?
Yeah, from you. That's what we need. So, but yeah, dude. So, and then we screw around, and eventually, a lot of time ticks by. It's 5:35. A lot of time's going to tick by, and we'll be like, yeah, we should probably wrap this thing up, put a bow on this thing, and then we just do it again.
Sweet. Just so you know, when I get on camera, I tend to get sarcastic, snarky, not in an ugly way. I like to have fun and laugh.
Yeah. Giddy up.
So, yeah.
You're allowed to do that.
Cool.
Other than that, don't lick your microphone, because I've sneezed on all of them just to try to prevent you.
So don't break the painting. Don't lick the microphone.
Okay. I have a confession to make.
Limited profanity.
You already licked it.
I licked the microphone as soon as I sat down. It's just like standard operating procedure.
That sounds right. This is why you're my favorite guy to get caught. I'm like,
because I'm a microphone licker?
Better than being a window licker. I don't know. That's going to get me censored. Anyway. All right. So, but no, Rob, dude, what is, like, give us, I don't want the 30,000 foot view. I want, give me like the breakdown of you, your family dynamic, and like the pre-New York departure. We don't got to get into that yet, but like, what's Rob's background? That's a bit of a flyover, I'm sure, but give me that rundown.
Okay, man. It's hard to start because I've lived like 6 lives, so.
You got 3 left, and you're a cat now.
So. Yeah, I hate cats. I knew you were going to go there with the cat thing. Where do we start? Well, I got to start 30,000 foot. Then I'll let you kind of hone in on what you want. So I was born and raised in Long Island, New York, and I was raised in a Presbyterian church. I was never taught or received the gospel until much later. So naturally, as many teenage boys do, I got distracted by things of the world and just ran amok. Joined the Marine Corps. While I was in the Marine Corps, I just got deeper and deeper into into sin and all those things.
What year did you join the Marine Corps?
2001. I was actually in boot camp on 9/11.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I was getting fitted for my final uniform fitting when the second tower fell. They pulled us all into a circle and told us what had happened, and that was that. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, I have a military background. I've been deployed. A big part of my story, and I'd love to go back on this at some point, is that I am a combat veteran, that I had a years-long struggle with PTSD, and with that was linked to alcohol and rage, and actually constantly going back and seeking combat was probably like the biggest vice in that whole thing. But I've also experienced which camera's mine? I like to look in the camera sometimes.
You don't gotta look at the camera.
Driving a point home. There we go.
Don't look at camera.
No, I know, because I just, there's things to me that are important. I want the audience to connect with the authenticity behind. But I have experienced true and complete deliverance and healing from that. That's a big part of my story, and that's something that I want to get out there, especially as when I break out into the public square and all that. So, so that's early life. That my wife met me while I was working security contracts in Afghanistan. And at that point, between my Marine Corps time and the private security stuff, I had almost 10 years into military or paramilitary work. And this weird thing happened where I met Coco, and I got back to Afghanistan, and I experienced physical illness. I was homesick. After 10 years of running around like a wild man, I suddenly realized I was homesick. So essentially, I quit my job. And she said, "So what are you going to do?" And I was like, "Well, I've been away from my family for 10 years, so I think I'm going to just hang out in New York for a little bit, because we were dating at the time, so we weren't like engaged yet."
Yeah.
And so I'm going to hang out in New York and reconnect with my family. 10 years away from my sisters and mom and dad, and I didn't really feel like I knew anybody anymore. So she said, "Okay, I'm moving to New York." And she moved to New York, and like the good Christian girl that she was, moves into an apartment with me.
Okay.
Sorry, babe, but
you're gonna get in trouble for that.
It's our story,
Right.
and we're not ashamed. She'll actually kind of tell it the same way. So yeah, it doesn't take long. Within a year and a half, we're engaged, and then within less than a year of that, we're married. So now it's 2012, and now we'll get a little less 3,000-foot view,
Sure.
30,000, however you said it. So we get married, and I wrote her this letter before the wedding, and I don't remember what I wrote, but I know that one thing that I wish I would have brought my Bible, that I had said was, I wanted Jesus to be at the center of our relationship. And she gave me a Bible as our wedding gift. And it's funny because I just looked in the cover of it today, and I haven't looked in the cover of it in probably years. And she had written the same thing to me, that she wants Jesus to be at the center of our marriage. And a little fun fact is, I just got done with my master's. I'm a theologian, if you will, and I love the ESV translation because of its scriptural and just the integrity that goes into that particular translation. And this one is an NIV, which I'm not a big fan of, and I just can't part with this Bible because my wife gave it to me. So that is the Bible I read every day.
We can agree that ESV is the best one.
Yeah.
It is the extra saved version. So.
Come on, man. You got something there.
No, he didn't want me to make the extra save version joke.
Okay.
No, it's fun. I've had a couple discussions with our Wednesday night group about like the best to understand version.
Okay.
But I love that guys are reading from different versions.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to go, "Hey, what does yours say?"
Yeah.
When we hit it like a rough spot.
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, here's one way to look at it. Here's another way. Hey, yours doesn't have this word."
Mm-hmm.
Right. As we're all trying to navigate Melchizedek. Melchizedek?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Melchizedek?
I like that one.
That's how I've heard it.
Yep.
Melchizedek? Bro.
Depends on which seminary you go to.
That's our like understanding that's where we're at in Hebrews right now. So
what's your preferred? You're the ESV. What's your preferred translation?
I'm an old school New King James guy.
You can't say old school and New King James in the same sentence.
Well, compared to ESV or
True,
NIV.
true. Okay.
So yeah, I mean,
I like a little
we're not in the
formality.
Ethiopian Bible, you know, but like the original.
Yeah.
But I mean, it dates back further than anything, right? Is my understanding. But no, what's funny is the Bible my wife gave me for our wedding is an NIV. And it's the only NIV I keep around.
Yep.
And my other two, my study Bibles that I study deep into are both ESVs.
That's, same.
Not because they're really the extra save version, although I did hear that one time and I've never let go of it.
The reason that I've gravitated to the ESV is I do think it's very easy to read. It's relatively our modern English. It's a modern translation. But the...
and yet it's still not the Message Bible.
As far as the process that they use to translate it, it really has taken advantage of the greatest and latest and earliest source documents. That the word that they used in academia is textual criticism, and that's just essentially the process of looking through all the source documents, because there's differences in a lot of the early gospel copies, and the theory is that the closer you get to the original, the more original your copy is going to be. So as you had scribes that would annotate and they change things over the first few hundred years of Christendom, there was some change, but now we're getting earlier and earlier documents. And not to throw shade at the New King James Version, but if you were to compare the documents used for the King James or the New King James to the documents for the ESV, you have a much better translation today.
So the physical Bible I read every morning is an NIV because, again, it's the one my wife picked out before our wedding.
Nice.
It's like a good default fiance Bible for your husband.
Yeah.
I feel
like Paul should have had a scripture about for this reason I don't allow women to choose translations.
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. Whoa. You're not wrong, but whoa.
But I like reading a real physical book, but I love having my phone for our group because I can switch between the three versions as we're reading, and just being able to be and just get those little bit of, hey, different.
Yep.
Before we dive into now, you're getting married and it's 2012.
I hope that's the right year.
Yeah. Before we, I got married in 2012, but I have it tattooed inside my hand. So you got to get tattoos to remind you of stuff. I got my kids' names and birthdays on my back. Couple strategic mirrors, bro. I was
gonna say,
got it.
I also got married in 2012. That one didn't work out.
Oh,
that was the first one.
I was actually. I don't even refer. This is my marriage. I was married previously as well.
Oh, you got a tank top coming.
Yeah, we got shirts for you.
We have shirts.
Why does that have to do?
We have tank tops that says high fives to second wives.
I will not wear that.
Gavin and I wear them with pride. They're very loud, blue.
I wear it to the gym maybe once a week or volleyball.
My wife loves it.
Coco is my first wife.
There you go.
Yeah.
She's the real one.
She's the one.
100%. She's your bride.
That's why I don't even it's not even a shame thing when I'm I don't want to say that I was previously married. It's just that was just another, that person, meaning myself. Yeah. That person's dead.
That groom from the first wedding, he doesn't even exist.
I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, you won in this. The person I was before I met you was a not great version of the man you ended up with. 100%. You won in this.
100%.
You didn't want to know that guy.
Pray for my ex-wife all the time because, man, that poor woman had to deal with old me.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny. A lot of guys want to blame their ex-wives for everything, but it's she's not a bad person. She definitely had to deal with a rough version of me, and I was 18 when I got married. So, yeah. But anyway, all right. So before we get to, before we kind of jump into that, I want to understand. So, when did you come to know Jesus? Do you know Jesus yet? Because you said a good Christian woman talking about Coco. Courtney is her real name.
Courtney is her real name.
Eased over that I'm just Iraq, Afghanistan, and then she's buying me a Bible.
So
it's funny. I tell this story before, and we're actually getting to the point where I usually back up a little bit.
You were raised, and then you're a heathen, and then you have to find Jesus. We've documented the first two.
Yeah.
Where do we find Jesus in here? The serious, life's gonna start turning.
Well, and that's So let me pick up where I left off then.
Okay.
Because
we were about to hit the rewind button and go to that, huh?
We need to.
Okay.
Because that's part of it.
Giddy up.
But So we get married, and then we go on a honeymoon, and then the week we come back, we land at this church in New York, and that weekend was like when my life got serious about following Jesus.
Okay.
I had a Holy Spirit encounter that weekend. I was sitting behind a gentleman named Michael, and I felt the tangible presence of the Lord behind me in church. And I felt that presence go from behind me, through me, and out the front of me. And I sensed that it went like literally hit Mike, and then Mike starts speaking out in tongues. And at that point, I had read enough scripture and been around enough religion to kind of know that, like, okay, we're in a public gathering, and there should be an interpretation that follows. And I prayed and I asked the Lord to bring an interpretation, because I didn't want to be involved in anything that's not authentic, that's not real him. And the Latin percussionist Willie Costa, who's a great friend of mine now, received the interpretation, and from the altar, because he was on the worship team that day, he says, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slain. Worthy is the Lamb that was slain. Worthy is the Lamb that was slain." And I got wrecked. I was so overcome. But let's back up, because there is something I left out you were getting at.
Okay.
So in 2003, I went to Okinawa. I was there from 2004, 2005. I was in Okinawa. This is when I met my ex-wife, and she was raised a charismatic Christian, and she was, I don't want to throw shade, but she was a piece of work. Let's just leave it at that. And meanwhile, this whole time, she's like trying to get me into church. And I'm like, I don't want anything to do with church. I was raised Presbyterian. I also went to Catholic school. I was running from God. I knew if I came to the Lord that there was things in my life I was going to have to give up. I wasn't willing to part with those things at the time. And yeah, she's just constantly hounding me. Let's go to church. Let's go to church. And I'm like, nope, we're not doing this. But the Passion of the Christ came out.
Yeah.
In Base Theaters.
Oh.
And me and her and a friend of mine, David, we go and watch the Passion of the Christ. And I got absolutely wrecked watching this movie.
Yeah.
With that movie, I never had any doubt as to whether or not Jesus was real or Jesus was God.
Mm-hmm.
God was real. I've always had some measure of faith. And when I saw that movie, I came away from that movie theater, and somehow I knew that everything that occurred on the screen was biblically accurate, in the sense that it portrayed something that I don't actually believe can be portrayed in the best way possible. So I think that I'll leave that there. So I was faced with Jesus' humanity and the reality that his sacrifice couldn't be for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But that was it. There was no one there to preach the gospel. There was no, so I just kind of was like, the next day I was like, whatever, life goes on. I didn't know what to do with that. And then my ex-wife, there was this thing called an Alpha course. Have y'all ever heard of the Alpha course?
Yeah, Alpha.
Yeah, yep. The old school Alpha with Nicky Gumbles, Teethy Gumbles, I like to call him. I hope he would never see this.
No.
This is the old school Alpha that was recorded in like an Anglican cathedral in England.
No.
Yeah. So the new one is almost a carbon copy of it, but it's been modernized
and taught in every church.
Yeah, it's definitely gained in popularity.
Yeah.
It's the same content.
Okay.
I'll plug it right now. I mean, it's great. If you're looking for a resource that is really good for covering some basics as far as like foundational stuff, who God is, how can we have a Trinity, how can we trust the scriptures, all that stuff. It's really good. So I came away from the Alpha course knowing essentially that the scriptures were reliable. So now I've had these two encounters. One, realizing that Jesus' humanity was real and that his sacrifice.
What's the timeline though on the Alpha course?
Within a few months.
After,
this is all like the second half of my time in Okinawa. So this is all like within. This is all.
We're not too far removed from Passion of the Christ.
Yeah,
timeline wise. Okay.
No, not at all.
Just pretty.
I had like 3 encounters in probably less than the 6-month period from the Passion of the Christ to the Alpha course. But I had no context for anything, and I was not interested in church, just not interested. So, so I've got some foundational truths, but I have no discipleship community around me or anything like that. So my time in Okinawa ends, and I get back to Camp Lejeune, and there's this little church, and Camp Lejeune is full of churches. It's like Franklin and Brentwood, churches everywhere.
Gotcha.
But we landed in this little Pentecostal church that maybe had 100 members, and I was like, I was just kind of going with it, like going through the motions. You know, they let me. They asked me to. They found out I was a musician, and I was like pushed onto the worship team. And even though I was not even following Jesus, it's so cringy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember
that only happens at that one church, though.
No, only it's only that one.
Other times
Definitely doesn't happen at other churches.
Never. So yeah, then I remember. That's the first time like I started encountering people like speaking in tongues and, you know, laying hands on and praying. And I was kind of weirded out by it all, but I felt this still small voice saying, "Don't judge what you don't understand." And I really felt like that was where the Lord wanted me for the time. Looking back, I know that now. So one day, one Sunday, there's an altar call, and I'm in the back of the church, and this guy comes up to me. I don't know who it was, and he preaches the gospel to me. And I was a wreck. I was an emotional wreck at the moment. I think I was just really confronted with my sin and how far I was from Jesus. And he preaches the gospel to me, and I turned to him and I said, "But you don't know what I've done." And his response to that was he verbatim preached the same gospel that he preached before. The only thing he added was, "It doesn't matter what you've done. This is the gospel." And when he got done, it was like the light bulb went off. It clicked. And then I was like, oh, Jesus died for that thing that I think I can't be redeemed for. Right. And at that moment, I knew that I was saved.
And we're also, it's so easy for people to feel like, well, yeah, that's all great, but you don't know what I've done.
Yeah.
Right? You don't know who I was. You don't know where I came from. As opposed to like, you get that transition where all of a sudden you're like, I'm not outside of the reach of Jesus.
Yep.
Like, it's, which is why the Saul Paul story, you know what I mean? Like, you had to have the most egregious human be an example for.
Chiefest of sinners.
Yeah.
I would say that Paul's claim on himself is not so much like the biblical authority that he was the chiefest sinner, because I so relate to that claim when I take an assessment of how far I was from Christ and the things that I had done and all that stuff. So I think it's just a realization that without Jesus, we're just so totally bankrupt. But he's made a way, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So that day, I got in my truck, and I don't remember much else about that day or the following days, but I know for sure that I put Walk by Pantera on. And I got in my truck,
appropriate response.
and I laid tracks.
Yeah.
You know, anytime that I'm really feeling the Holy Spirit, I really like to lean into Pantera.
Yeah. So that was 2005. That was 2005. And honestly, from 2005 through on till 2012, there really wasn't much going on as far as like, I would try to commit to reading my Bible, but I was still too caught up in
living life.
In living life, yeah. Let's just call it that. You know, there was moments that I know I had encounters. Oh man, there's so much we could break out. I was in an IED attack that should have like obliterated me, and it didn't. And I knew, even though I wasn't walking with the Lord, you know, when I realized what had just happened, I knew that there was literally a creative miracle that spared me and my friend. When I was on that deployment, also in 2005, and I found out that my wife was cheating on me, I knew that the heart of Christ was to forgive. And even though even though Jesus gives a permission to divorce for adultery, somehow I knew then that just because you have permission to do something doesn't mean it's necessarily the best thing to do. And I knew that his heart was forgiveness, so I wanted to forgive her. You know, all of this outside of like reading the Bible, outside of church, So yeah, those were the early years. But then 2012 came, and once I had that encounter, it was like we were all in. Coco and I, she was already kind of all in. I just think she had really bad taste in men at the time, and ended up with me. And you know, I don't know why. It's not much going on here, but
you're not bad.
I had no money. I had no money. I had no job.
Saw your potential.
Yeah, she saw my potential. But yeah, ever since we got back from our honeymoon, it's just been like full on pursuit of Jesus. It's, you know, our lives are his. And what's up?
Where'd you honeymoon at?
Punta Cana. That's where we met. So we went back there for our honeymoon.
Nice.
And we actually have not had a vacation since, outside of like visiting family or something like that stateside.
Punta Cana's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I love the Dominican.
yeah. So when I met her, the way we met was her cousin is a friend of mine, and who I was in the military with, and her cousin Erin said, I was catching up with Erin and telling her about the divorce I was going through, and she's like, "Oh, you should introduce yourself to my cousin Courtney." And I was like, "Dude, I just like got out of this debacle,
Right?
Like, I don't want a girlfriend, 2. And if I'm gonna have a girlfriend, it's not gonna be my friend's cousin, because that's just like gonna muddy the waters, you know?
Exactly.
Because I'm probably gonna burn this girl, and so I checked out her Facebook profile anyway, and I kept like stalking her on Facebook a little bit, and like, I don't know what it is, but eventually I sent her a message, and we started DMs, and then we started phone, and I was on vacation stateside. So at the time I was working contracts. You work 3 months on, you take a whole month off. And in order to get the expatriate exemption, you don't take your month off and hang out stateside. You go to other countries, because it's like, well, pay Uncle Sam or go to Dominican
find
Republic.
somewhere to chill.
So I told Coco, I'm like, hey, I'm going to Punta Cana. If you want to meet me there, you know, I'll cover everything. And first she said no. And then she called me back like 30 seconds later and said yes. And that was where we met for the first time, like face to face, was Punta Cana. So that's where we went for our.
She left
honeymoon.
the country to meet you for the first time.
Mm-hmm. We've been talking for like a good 2 months plus at that moment. So it wasn't like.
There's something to be said for like meeting in person though. And,
yeah.
And hopping on a plane to go to a different country for that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of faith. It's a lot easier to be like, hey, let's have a 30-minute coffee date, and then I'm going to head home if it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Right. When you go meet somebody in another country, do you still set up that like fake phone call that you got to run home? Like, oh, the house is on fire. Okay, I'll be right there.
I got to get to the airport.
Sorry, I have to leave. So sorry, I have to go. This has been great. This has been so great, but I have to go.
I'll follow up like once the house is not on fire anymore. I'll call you next week.
Man, dude, there's so many little bits of like had to trust. It's pretty cool. So
yeah.
All right, dude. So you guys are married when, right? So
2012.
Okay. So you sure?
Close enough.
Like what month and date?
About to text her. Hey, what year did we get married? No, June. We got married. June. We got married in May.
Do you want to
Her
phone
birthday's
a friend?
in June. Her birthday's in June. Dude, listen, it's been a long day.
Yeah, I get you. No, I understand.
I've been slinging hot lattes.
Ooh.
And I've been fasting, so I'm a little off my game right now.
No, you're good, brother. All right, so now you guys are married. You're living in New York.
Yeah.
You're at some point you transition to being Mr. Corporate Guy.
Yeah. So when I first moved back to New York, I had no skill set. Like my only skill set was, well, that's not true. I was trained as a mechanic, but I hated doing mechanic. I refused to do that job. So as far as I was concerned, my only skill set was tactical. Like that was all I wanted to do. And when that's your only skill set, what you end up doing is you end up going and being a day laborer and competing with illegal immigrants for work. So my first job out of that whole life was literally digging holes with a shovel. And that was what I was doing for like, I don't even know, $8 an hour or something. It was tough because, yeah. And, well, that's not true. Actually, my first job was I went back to the deli that I used to work at. I was short order chefing for a little bit, and then I got back into construction. So I started, working for this construction company and doing, low man on the totem pole, and I just worked my way up. And by 2017, so 5 years into that, I had established my own construction company, and I was subcontracting for the same company that I started for, as well as getting my own work. And I project managed a job for the owner of the world's largest manufacturer of musical accessories.
Gotcha.
So when I got done building his beautiful house, 13,000 square foot, $9 million build. I mean, everything in this house is custom. Every detail. He paid me a great compliment. He said, "I really like how you ran this project, and I'd love for you to come work at my company." And I wanted out of construction. So I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So that's how I got into the quote unquote corporate world.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. So then how many years fast forward to the departure from corporate America?
Yeah. Well, let me back up a little bit. So that was 2017, 2018 when I started that job. Back in 2016, I started having this like righteous discontentment with the construction industry.
Okay.
And I called my chaplain, who was the chaplain who deployed with my unit on my first deployment. And he was just somebody I really trusted. And I just kind of told him like, "Hey chaps, this is what I'm going through, really kind of wrestling between like, being in the world and this industry and what it's going to take to be successful in this industry." And at the time I was doing a lot of trim, like finish carpentry by myself. So I was alone. Wow. I was alone for like 50, 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
And what I was doing for that 50, 60 hours a week was like listening to sermons, listening to audio Bible, listening to worship music. So I was just getting like constant, like drinking through a fire hydrant of Jesus, right? So naturally you start to look at the things around you and you're like, man, something's just not lining up here. And he shared with me what had happened. So I didn't even know this about him, but he was a Marine before he went in the Navy. And he went through a similar experience. He's like, when I went through that, I'm not saying this is it for you, but it was the Lord calling me to seminary. And that's ultimately what caused me to go and get my degree. And then he went back in the Navy and became a chaplain. And I had the GI Bill. So I went home and I talked to Coco about it, and I got really excited. I was like, I think I finally know what I'm going to use my GI Bill for. And for years she'd been hounding me. She's like, "When are you going to go to school?
Do something with it.
Do something with this." I was like, maybe I'll go for engineering. Maybe I'll go for architecture. I don't know. I'm like, I'm going to go to seminary. And when I get out of seminary, I'm going to go in the Navy. I'm going to be a chaplain. And she was like, "Cool, let's do it."
Yeah.
So I started my undergrad in theology at Liberty University.
Okay.
The Liberty University online in 2016.
Gotcha.
In 2018, I took a break because of the job. And then that brings us back to where we were. So the exit from the corporate world was essentially 2020 comes around, and Coco's kind of starting to. So when I took the job, thinking, Coco's like, "Aren't you supposed to be going to school right now?" And I was like, I prayed about this. The Lord gave me a release, and when the first day I walked into the job, he spoke to me and he said, "Hold loosely to this. I have more for you." Right.
So you were just telling me this story the other day, sitting on my patio. I love this story.
Yeah.
But when you get there, make sure you lay out a good visual of what your basement looked like.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I want the full impact of this.
Yeah.
Because it's so good.
Got it. Okay.
Were you just doing project management or like?
Yeah, project management for the operations side. So which in reality, if my job title was operations project manager, but my actual role was like special projects manager, which if you work for any company anywhere and you are the special project manager, get out. Okay. You are expendable. You are a line item. They don't need you. And as soon as the next manufactured disease comes, you're going to be the first one to get fired. So you heard it here.
Manufactured disease? Whatever do you mean?
Sheesh.
Sheesh.
Going to throttle the plays on this one.
Especially with what came out today. But let's not get off on all the evidence showing that, Senor Fauci was a partner, and never mind. Just so as you were saying,
more of the same.
Yeah, just useless.
So yeah,
Murder.
Man. So where were we?
You're managing projects.
So as I'm walking,
20 hits, and
so like my process with making decisions is interesting. Sometimes I'm unsure about something and I'll pray and I don't hear an answer from the Lord, and other times I do. And when it came to this job and putting school on break, I didn't really have like an audible answer, but I there was a peace about it. I didn't. I hate using the next word that I'm about to use because
we don't condone the F word here.
Yeah. But I felt that I was good. So
okay.
I'm not going to get into a whole sermon on that.
No. But so anyway, but as you were saying, right, when you went on if you're a special project manager, you're expendable.
Yeah.
Right. So we're early into COVID, right, and some changes. Hey, let's get you back on track here.
Well, before we get into COVID, so I walk in the door, and the Lord says, "Hold loosely to this, I have more for you."
Yeah.
Yes.
And what I knew in that moment is that I was in His perfect will.
Nice.
Right. And it actually gave me like peace and joy that I could go into this job and be more concerned about the things of the kingdom than the job itself. And I'm like a perfectionist. I love doing things to excellence. I'm a troubleshooter. Put a challenge in front of me, and I just want to see it through. And I realized that there was a purpose for me being there. That it was not just a job. That there was a kingdom purpose for me being in that company. Which was cool. Some pretty cool things came out of that. Within I don't know how long. Within a year, we had a Bible study going in the office. We'd actually meet in one of the executives' office and talk through scripture and pray together.
Nice.
I'd have people approach me and, they'd ask me questions about faith. I got to preach the gospel to people. I had never been in a work situation where I was like missional before, because on the construction site, it's a construction site. Like you want to talk about foul language. Yeah. Plus like these guys knew me when I was early in my walk. So as I got closer to Jesus, they had no context for like the changes that I was experiencing. Like I was just this crazy Marine that came on the job site and would throw temper tantrums, So anyway, I knew that the Lord's grace was on me in this place. There's a nice rhyme for you. And it knowing that empowered me to actually be missional while I was there, which was also really cool. The executive is my current business partner now in North Arrow Coffee. So we'll get to some of that later. But but DJ's an awesome dude. He's also a veteran. He was already a believer. I didn't lead him in that way.
A little bit about this guy. I didn't realize he was a connection back to the musical instrument company.
Absolutely. Yep.
What was it called? Do you not want to say?
I'd rather not say right now. Yeah,
that's fair.
Because it's a very woke.
I just was having a conversation earlier today with a buddy of mine who's a musician, and we got on the topic of you, and something came up, and I'm like, my buddy Rob was actually just telling me the story. I'm like, and he worked for an instrument company, and I'm like, and he's like, what company? And I'm like,
he would know it right away. It's
I
a big
couldn't
name.
remember.
Yeah. So there's a little backstory on North Arrow. We'll get into that later. But so everything's a couple years there. Things are going good. 2020 comes around, and the pandemic hits. But even before the pandemic hit, Coco was kind of starting to get on me a little bit, and she's like, "When are you going to go back to school?" She's like, "You were only supposed to put it on school for hold. Is this job going to be your career or not?" And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm asking the Lord, like, what am I doing? And I'm not hearing anything, Yeah. And then the first week of the pandemic hits, and the first case hits U.S. soil, and every the executive committee shuts down the plant, and everybody's working from home. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll work from home. Just save me 10 hours a week on a commute, and we're cutting everybody's salary in half. I'm like, what? You got to be kidding me. Yeah, they cut our salary in half, and I was livid when that happened, because within a week I have this idea, and there was all this need for medical devices.
Yeah,
everything from splash guards to face masks.
So very very important masks.
Yeah, so turns out that we have literal tons of clear plastic sheeting laying around, not getting turned into drum heads. And it's the same exact material that you would use to make medical grade face masks. Literally the same material. So, so I sent an email to the CEO and I was like, hey, well, actually the first thing I did was I made a prototype in my basement out of cardboard of what a die cut single piece throwaway face shield would look like. And it was, you know, it was like I was thinking of the old Burger King hats and how remember it had like the interlocking tabs and all that stuff.
Had little tabs and then it had a bunch of slits in it so that you could size it.
Yeah. Basically, face shield, and you would wrap this thing up and it would create its own standoff and tab it in the back. And I drew a smiley face on it, sent pictures to the executives, and they're like, man, this is cool. We actually we have a couple guys working on face shields. There was a few other guys that had similar ideas, so we immediately stood up a team and we got into, you know, this thing of standing up face shield production, which as far as I know saved the company because they weren't moving anything for months.
The musical accessories were not deemed essential.
Yeah. That's it. So within
and that had to have been a huge play for the company, right? I mean, if you're making components of musical instruments, I mean, not only is there the aspect of like, you know, live music has stopped, right? Musicians aren't upgrading their stuff. Whatever that
they all get their stuff for free. It's actually what happened was the pandemic actually caused a huge surge in sales, which meant that
because of
inventory, because everybody was at home, so everybody was pulling their guitars out and wanting to restring and rehead their drums. And
but more importantly, right? I mean, there's that, you know, there's the what was it? Not necessary. What was the word they used to describe the, you know, Walmart's over your local
essentials?
Essentials. Yeah. You were not an essential.
We were not essential. No. So we made ourselves essential by breaking into the medical devices.
I do feel like during that period there was that whole like patriotism of like World War II. It's Henry Ford making tanks, and it's like everyone was like,
every distillery making hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Dude, there was some distilleries making hand sanitizer.
Oh, a ton of them.
Yeah.
A ton. I mean, and that's a ton of them. They went, hey, we're going to take these stills that what's coming out of it, and we're going to just it's dang near the same process. So I mean, actually, all the hand sanitizer we had around was all from Kenny Farms Distilling.
Yeah.
So. Smelled so good. It was a little oaky, really good stuff.
I would have liked that.
It wasn't tasty, but it was good.
So, you know, we're now in, you know, getting into April, and after like 2 weeks of half salary, it's like you start getting pissed because you're working 80 hours a week, and you're doing this project, and I never bought into all the hype, but it's like. Nobody else would go to the factory to do stuff, and meanwhile, I'm there. Like I got the keys to the building at this point. I'm turning on manufacturing equipment and making stuff, and I'm like, here I am, you know, Batmaning the company, and I'm still doing it for half pay. Yeah. And in my conversation with the Lord, I'm super frustrated, and He's like, this is another like just handful of times that I've so clearly heard Him speak. He said, just do your best work. He said, honor me by working to excellence. Don't worry about the pay stuff. And, by the way, this is the beginning of the end. So I was like, oh, okay. Which was great for me because Coco was like, when are you going to quit? When are you going to quit? When are you going to quit? Don't you think it's time to quit? And I was like, I don't know. I don't feel that way, you know?
Right.
There's that F word again, right? I'm not feeling that.
Yeah. So
we get, we actually start production of face shields. And what happens now, this is why I don't want to say their name because I'm going to, you know.
No, it's fair.
We use that as a foothold to turn on production for other things. So as soon as we were essential, the whole factory came back online.
Yeah.
It was like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
So we get face shield production up, and I was supposed to then roll into another major project. We were re-outfitting our whole global distribution center, new technology, new picking stuff, I was actually super excited. It was a big industrial design project. And it's funny because my business partner was in charge of the department that was in charge of that project. And he went to the president of the company and said, I want Rob to lead this project. And everybody said yes. So I was going to move from ops I was going to move from production over to distribution. And then even though the president said yes, my direct boss, who had no clue what I did day to day, again, when you're in the special projects world, it's basically had a cut. There was 2 people that were parallel with me. 3. And when you look at the structure of the company, that those 3 were value stream managers and I was not. So it was a clear decision of who was going to get cut.
Right.
So I'm like, hey, great, we're in production, sales are going, everything's running. I'm like, gents, I'm taking a week. I need a week to decompress. I've been running ragged. Pays go back to normal. So I take a week. I go to Vermont. I come back. And Monday morning, it is the kindest gentleman from HR who I love. He's a believer. He's an awesome dude. But the second I heard his voice on the phone, like, there's only one reason this dude's calling me right now.
Yep.
So I pick up the phone and he's like, hey, Rob, how's it going? I was like, man, I like you a lot. I want you to know that. But as soon as I saw you on my call ID, I knew it wasn't gonna be a good day. He's like, can you hold on for a minute while I bring your supervisor on? It's like, yeah, dude, do what you got to do. So he brings in the soup. I get laid off, and of course it's these people. They're so weak, right? It's like the guy comes on the phone. He's like, yeah, it's. Your job's a commodity for the company, and you did great work for us, but we just gotta let you go. COVID's hurting the company, blah 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. He's like, all right, right. It's like HR's gonna stay on with you, and he gets off the phone. I'm like, it's like a silence. I'm like, you okay, dude? And he's like, I should be asking you that question. I was like, no, seriously, are you okay? How many of these are you doing today? And I ended up ministering to the guy who just made the call to let me go. But yeah, so we get off the phone, and my first. Oh, so you full context. So when the shutdown hits, so we live in this.
Here we go.
Let's get adjusted a little bit here. I got to sit up. So we lived in.
Rule number one.
Don't knock down the painting.
We lived in a 928 square foot home, one bedroom house, super spacious. Yeah.
How many floors was that?
Well,
Like
it was 2 if you counted the basement that had a 6.5 foot ceiling.
Which
so luckily for me,
in Illinois.
I'm not even 6 foot tall, so it worked out. So when we did the whole work from home thing, our unfinished basement became like
your zone.
My zone. That was my desk was down there, my array of screens, all my prototyping stuff. So I'm in the basement when I have this phone call, and we had an outside basement entrance and a hatch in like the center of the house with a ladder. And that's how, so if you don't want to go outside to get to the basement, there was like this, this hatch that would just like flop open.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I climbed the ladder and I pushed the hatch up and I like poked my head up and I'm like, hey babe. And she's like, what's up? I'm like, I just got fired from my job.
I got the rest of the day off.
Yeah, I got the rest of the day off. And I poked my head up and I told Coco I just got let go. And man, I can't even remember. Before that happened, I had this moment of like hurt, like anger, and I felt like betrayed. But then the Lord reminded me. There's another time the Lord speaks. He's like, I told you this was happening. Yeah. I was like, okay. And so I poked my head up. I'm like, I just got let go from my job. And she didn't know how to react. She kind of looks at me and she's like, what she was saying with her face, but she didn't say with her mouth, is like, are you okay? I was like, I'm okay. Everything's going to be fine. I'd close the hatch and go back in the basement.
How long between you?
I just lost my job. You okay? Everything's going to be great.
Yeah.
How long between you getting that call and you popping your head out of that hatch?
Maybe 30 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, I no hesitation.
Okay.
Because full confession, I was like, now she can't hound me to quit anymore.
Yeah.
So I was off the hook in more ways than one.
Good news, babe. The Lord delivereth.
Yes.
Your description of that, just pulled me back all of a sudden to roughly around that same time, going through a divorce and being like, the time I spent with the Lord in my basement,
Yep.
There's real stuff happening down there. There's no windows, but Jesus was there.
Yep. I'd like to point out, I remember his basement. There was no ladder or hatch involved, so it is not the same.
No, it was a split level. It was.
I'd
imagine
an
having
80-inch TV on the wall and a sectional in video games.
Imagine having to haul myself up a ladder and just
Jeez.
Yeah.
For a while, I couldn't get this guy off my couch. So
It's a nice couch.
it was a recliner.
Yeah.
So, but dude, so that's
Yep.
All right. So we're I want to hear the version of like, okay, so now we go from exploring what God has for you, but P breaks.
Yeah.
So, yep.
P
Can you
breaks.
use that instead of stopping it?
I thought you said Hebrews. I was like, what?
No, P breaks. Make sure we edit out the P break comment. Or don't. It's fine. Can you But seriously, I do want to have that conversation about doing that as a side thing.
Yeah.
And because honestly, I think that would be a ton of fun.
Well, yeah, let's have a conversation about that because we don't need a lot to really kick that off
at all. I mean, it's literally you bring the mixers and they provide the liquor. So, all right, hey, so we're gonna there we go, and we're started. All right, so back from pee break, dude. Super needed that. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, it's dude,
now you're getting the shiver.
Well, no, but here's the deal. Yeah, right. No, but here's the deal, dude. Like this whole like pounding water, just like and electrolytes, dude. I'm constant. I'm super hydrated, so I got to be very cautious. Like that, you just sipped.
Just do the obnoxious slurp. You know the science behind slurping. Right?
Yeah, it aerates. It's better.
Yep.
Anyways, so as we were, that's funny. I am now off track. So, all right. So we are transitioning out of your you
just got laid off,
right? So you've been laid off. We're transitioning. We're focused on what God's doing. But like you shared this story with me, man. Like this is so much like you talked about, like being in step and hearing God clearly guide, right?
Yeah.
And to where you're not running ahead and doing your own thing and asking God to co-sign where you're at, but rather just being patient and going like, all right, Lord, like what are my next steps, and really feeling that. And you shared a little bit about how you got to Tennessee and, kind of what for you and Coco, that different, but the same and at the same timeline. So kind of run us through a little bit of that. Like, how do you get here? Cause it's wild. Really just that trust and confidence, right? Like people are like, I trust in the Lord. And then they still find themselves going, really? That's what you want me to do? And there is something to like confidence behind pursuance of God. So, so what is that, man? Tell that part.
Man, that's like, it's so interesting sometimes when you're in this, on one of these like wild faith journeys and you hear other people's perspective. Because I'm just like, full transparency, I am not a solid rock. I am a ball.
You are human?
I am a ball of nerves and doubt. There's like, yes, we're here and the story is there, but there's this property out in Prim Springs that there has been this whole series of all of these little things that would appear to be coincidental that have pointed us towards this property, right? And my wife is so convinced that this is our property.
Tell me about it.
About the property?
Yeah.
It's approximately 40 acres. It's a little bit less than 40 acres. It's got 2 build sites on it. Already approved for septic. I've already trenched utilities to the property. Wells are installed. And it's absolutely beautiful property. Whoever was using it last was using it for equestrian. There's a 3 or 4 stall horse barn. There's hay growing in the fields. There's a tractor farmer that's still working it. It's outside of my means.
Yeah.
Right. So as I sit here today, I have not had a paycheck since July of 2020. All right. I've gotten, I collected unemployment through COVID, like everybody else that got laid off. Other than that, we have lived off of tax returns, savings. I couldn't add it all up. I'm a disabled vet, so I get a little bit from the VA. It's not much. But we have not had a paycheck. So last year, I just filed my taxes for last year. I made negative $6,000 last year. That was my gross income or my net income last year, negative $6,000. And here we are looking at this property that is listed at $1.4 million. And my wife has more faith that this is our property than I do, because in order for me to believe it, I need that deed in my hand supernaturally. Like
I'd like to point out that as a mortgage guy, that doesn't add up.
Yeah, it does not add up. There's nothing practical that adds up about this, right? So
again, though, right? Like, God doesn't promise practicality.
Yeah. Well, and this is the tension, and this is what I'm getting at. So it's like this whole process. It's like, and I haven't been perfect through this.
No,
you know.
If you were, we would go to church to talk about you.
But it has been, I think the question for me as I've gone through this is, what does faith look like today? Right. So there was a time where we could have left New York knowing that the Lord was calling us to Franklin, to Middle Tennessee, but it wouldn't have been done in faith. It would have been done based on circumstances. It would have been done based on my own guessing, trying to manufacture, trying to bring about the promise that the Lord gave. Right. So like with this property in Prim Springs, Coco and I were talking about this today, and I'm like, well, maybe I should just reach out to the owners and tell them to give it to us. It could be a faith move, but that could also be me trying to bring about something that the Lord is working to bring about. So all that to say, I think that I just want to kind of add this little lesson in there is I think sometimes the hardest thing to do is to do nothing and to wait. And it's okay when you're not hearing the Lord say go to wait. Sometimes you have to make a decision, and then you have to trust that because the Holy Spirit's in you, because as His children we are in His perfect will, that our decisions are not inherently bad. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Does that help? Yeah. So what was the original question?
I wanted to know, when thinking about dogs and cats. No, but like just, right, so we're talking about like finding this land, right? Like getting here. How do we transition? What is that walk of God leading you from? He told you, you said, I heard God tell me clearly that, hey, this is the beginning of me closing this story, ending this period in your life. This part of the story, right, is over. And then from there, right, and that is 2000. Yeah. And in 2003, cool. I meet you in Tennessee. Yeah. And there's a walk that brings you to Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. So what happened that I think it was that same day as I was asking the Lord, what's next? Because when you get laid off from a job, it's like, okay, well, I got to find a new job. That would normally be your first thought.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Update your resume and get on Indeed or whatever.
I honestly don't believe that was my first thought. I think my next thought was, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Because I knew that the Lord was in the laying off. I knew that He saw it. He said this is the beginning of the end. Right. So I was like, okay, well, now what?
And you realized right away, like that was the completion of what the Lord told you was coming.
There was about 5 seconds of like anger and hurt and disappointment. And then I remember my fist got balled up, and but yeah, as quickly as that happened, like He reminded me. So.
Right. And you're like,
so it was easy not to
tell me this was coming. Yeah. Like, why am I upset about this? You said it was coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it didn't hurt. There was a very small severance, so it's not like I knew I had to do something that day to keep the lights on or anything.
It's just like a stack of coupons to KFC.
Just like a week's pay or something. It was a joke.
3,000 free drumsticks.
Yeah. I still have I still have packs packs of guitar strings.
Yeah.
I could still call them probably and get
and
some
cases of face shields.
Yeah. Freaking face shields. So it's funny. I haven't kind of processed through this part of it, but I remember asking the Lord, well, what then? What am I doing now? Am I going back to construction? Is this the point at which so at that point we already knew that we were coming to Middle Tennessee, because back in 2019, I'm great at just popping around these timelines, right?
Yeah. I'm enjoying it.
Well, I was waiting for. I didn't pump this one because you have told me this part, and I knew there. I was like, well, he clearly likes to hit that rewind.
Everything, it's like I'm great at the flashback.
You're a true Bible reader. Nothing's chronological.
Nothing's chronological. So, so in 2017 or 2018, we were visiting Alabama often because my wife has family down there, and
Huntsville.
No, not far from Huntsville, Moulton, right outside Decatur.
I hear if you just drive to Huntsville on a whim for dinner, it's very nice.
I don't believe that for 1 second.
No, we go to Muscle Shoals.
And is that
not very nice? I just like going down the Parkway.
This is the guy that'll be like, we drove 2.5 hours for lunch.
Yeah,
Huntsville's only 2.5 hours from here.
No, it's not.
I was gonna say it's more like 4 or 5.
Yeah, Muscle Shoals is 2 hours, and there's some nice stuff around
from here.
Yeah,
I have to go there.
Yeah,
just because it's in the song.
Hop on the Parkway.
It's Muscle Shoals so pretty. Is much more than a song. That is like
I know
that is a hot spot musically.
Yeah. So wait, that's like past Hole in Wall. Going down the trace?
Keep going down the trace.
Oh, man. I got to check this out.
Same. Might be a nice Saturday. Maybe we'll put all the families in somebody's large vehicle and head on down.
Yeah.
In the back of my camper?
Yeah, that's an idea.
just shove all the kids in there and
I got walkie-talkies.
get all the grown-ups in the pickup truck.
I like it.
Better yet, what if we just hire a driver and we party in the back? Everyone's like, "Oh, I kind of like that."
There's this new Hyundai minivan. That's
Not all heroes wear
recliners
capes.
in the back.
I like it.
All
right,
man. That part's got to get it out. We don't party in the back. Those days are behind us.
We're not editing it. Yeah, we're gonna edit that out. Yeah.
So she's got family down
there. We'll have adult time.
Our partying is just way more responsible now.
Yeah.
Yes.
We at the end of the
talk
day
about
say
Jesus.
goodbye. We're all allowed to walk and drive home.
My idea of partying is talking about Jesus until instead of getting slayed, someone gets slain in the spirit.
I was gonna say, dude, like we partied the other night, and I think the four of us sat on my patio in the rain till like 10 when we finally stopped smoking cigars and talking about Jesus. We're pretty rugged.
Yeah. So we were there's this property that one of her great aunts had, and she wanted to sell it, and we agreed on a price, and she was going to own or finance it for us. And it was beautiful, 36 acres, active cattle ranch, with a not a historic house in the sense that it had a plaque on it, but it was an old farmhouse that, man, for me, I would have made this house sick just with my construction background. So we thought this was it. You know, we were like, okay, we're moving to Alabama. We were really close with her family there at the time. And our dream had always been to move south.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, like for years, Coco moved to New York temporarily because I had always said I wanted to live in Carolina. So I was stationed in North Carolina and I fell in love with the South.
Yeah.
So we shake hands on this house and we go back to New York, and I'm at work one day and I get a phone call or I get an email, and it's the it's the contract to buy this house, and it's not even like in the ballpark of what we agreed on.
Mm-hmm.
So I called her great aunt, and I said, hey, I got the paperwork, but this isn't what I wrote it down on a napkin. And this isn't what I wrote down. This isn't what we agreed on. And she's kind of old. And she's like, well, I don't control what the numbers are. They just are what they are. And I was like, what are you talking about? You don't control what the numbers are. We had an agreement. And she's like, yeah, and I sent it to my attorney, and whatever they sent you is what it is. And I'm like, I'm going to go now. Cause I was getting angry, and I'm like, I'm not going to cause a rift in the family and blow up on this sweet old lady on the phone. And I hang up the phone, and another one of those moments where my fists ball up. I remember I was in the kitchen of the house of the guy that I ended up working for, and it was just the studs. And I was like, it was one of those things where you could just punch something. And I just knew if I punched a stud in front of me, I was going to break my knuckles. But I could still see the exact spot that I was standing. And quick flashback. So when we shook hands on the house, Coco and I go down to the house, and we lay hands on the house, and we say, okay, Lord, we just want your will. So, whatever it is, we're going for this thing. But if you don't want this, Lord, we need you to put the brakes on it. And I remembered that. I remembered that we prayed that prayer, and it was like the Lord was saying, okay, you asked for my intervention if you're going to do something outside of my will. So are you okay with being offended right now? And I was like, okay. So I let it go. I called Coco, told her what had happened. She's devastated. Mm-hmm. Like, this was like believe it or not, this may sound trivial, but this is like one of the hardest phone calls I ever had to make, because her dream for the better part of a decade had been to move down south. And she came to New York, to be with me. And I'd always said we were going to move south, and we were finally moving south, and now we're not again. Yeah. And so I call her, tell her it's not going to happen. And she gets into a funk, and all of this ends up with essentially Coco going to this thing where the Lord basically had her put it on the altar. And we both did. It was like, okay, and at that time we were going through a church transition too, which those can be tough. Yeah. We were originally going to a church that was not in the town that we lived. And then we felt the Lord pulling us into this church plant that was in my hometown, which is a really poor community. That town needs like spirit-filled believers. So we're like, okay, Lord, we see what you're doing, and we are going to commit to this community. We're in it for the kingdom, not for our comfort, and we will die in the soil of Massac Beach if that's what you want. And we were happy. We were good. Like all the frustration, everything had broken off, and we were fine with that. And then we come into this church, and it was like we found our tribe too. So we like fall in love with these people, and we're serving together, and we're seeking the kingdom together. And we visit Nashville for a wedding in that fall, 2019. And we're walking down. I'm pretty sure it was Demumbrian or the next one over.
Great job getting that.
Yeah,
right.
dude. It only took me 7 months.
The number, now I do it on purpose to people. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, you familiar with good old
Demon Brewing?
And they're offended. The Southerners here are offended. If you call Demumbrian Demon Brewing,
yeah,
man, you can't say demon down here. It's the South, bro. People get upset.
I know, dude.
You gotta be real careful.
Dude, I just came out of like charismatic church where we were seeing deliverances, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to walk down this road right now. Like,
I'll say it, can we name, I don't want to fast forward, but can we name a coffee Demumbrian just to see, like, it's a great way to find out if people are from the South or if they're new, because the new people are asking for a Demon Brewing latte.
On the trailer, yes. On the website, no. We have a national audience, and they're not going to take kindly.
They ain't gonna get.
I have a lot of Catholics that like my brand. They're not going to take kindly to that at all.
On the trailer, if they call it Demon Brewing, you just make it one extra shot of espresso, a little extra bitter. You get them.
Be a demon brewing inside them.
Yeah. I'm brewing something that's a demon indeed.
Demon brewing coffee.
Man.
Oh, my goodness.
Demumbrian, man. So proud of you for getting that right, though.
I honestly, you look at the sign, it's like, that cannot be pronounced Demon Brewing. That this is, I know that's what it looks like, but I couldn't logically correlate that this.
You immediately in your head go Demon Brewing, and then right after that, you're like, I know that's not right.
Exactly.
That ain't it, but I can't figure out the alternative.
Yeah.
And if I could come up with it, that will be.
Well, and truth be told, I had to say it wrong in front of the right person to finally find out how to say it. So. Which was about a week ago, just in time for this podcast. So yeah, and we're walking down the road, and we both stop dead in our tracks, and I was feeling this thing like a heart tug toward Nashville, and I'm like, and I turned to Coco, and I'm like, are you feeling that? And her response to me was, "This is really weird," and I was like, "This is really weird," and I think I said something to the effect of like, in Nashville? Like, are we going to come do ministry in Nashville or something? And we both, I just said, you know what? Let's just like pray about it. Let's just hold loosely to this. Let's pray about this. But a cool thing happened that day. We ended up going down Broadway, and we've never, at that point, we've never been the type to really like minister out in public. We weren't like, evangelical gospel preachers and stuff like that. And we ended up ministering to like different people throughout the city, which was super interesting to us, because it's like, that's just not, like, we knew it was the Holy Spirit, but at the same time, it's just not, like, some people are that natural.
You didn't have a bunch of sandwich boards in the back of your car with,
oh yeah,
Jesus's, yeah.
Yeah, like there was this one dude that we were walking down Broadway, and I locked eyes with this dude from like 200 yards away, and I just immediately knew that there was something there. And he's holding up a card, and as we draw closer to him, and he saw me looking at him, and somehow he was a Marine. He was an old school Marine. We have this thing where we could sense each other's, we just know your own kind, I guess. And he's holding up his ID card, and I knew that he was a Marine. And I told him, like, dude, put your card away. Like, you don't have to show me your card to validate yourself, I felt like, I'm like, this is sad that this dude's having to flash his VA card to gain the respect of someone who's a brother. We went through the same gauntlet, and he's like, man, and he was, I get it, some people are asking for money and they're gonna go buy drugs. This dude just wanted lunch.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want to buy some food. I was like, I'll make you a deal. I will buy you food, but you have to sit and have lunch with me.
It's key.
Yeah. And he didn't even hesitate. He's like, okay. And we go into this pizza place, and he was out in front of the pizza place. And as soon as we walk in the pizza place, the store manager tried to kick him out. And I said, no, he's with me. And they let him in. And we sit down and have lunch. And turns out he had a wife, and they were like living in their car or something. And we end up praying with them, ministering to them. Didn't even need to minister the gospel to him because he already knew Jesus. So we had that one encounter. We had a couple more encounters that day. So that's 2019, Nashville.
Right.
And, we had completely given up on this dream of moving south. And then now the Lord's like opening this box back up. Right. So that's 2019. Can
I nitpick it?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you see this and maybe you don't. I don't know. We've not talked about this part of it, but like the whole, we've had this dream of moving south and now God's reopening it.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to your point, it was just a lot of other boxes that you kept trying to open that looked like what you wanted.
Yep.
And looked like what you thought God was telling you was the plan. Except his plan of moving south was always to bring you to Middle Tennessee, and you kept trying to open the Alabama or the whatever.
Carolina.
Right? Like the Carolina. Yeah. You kept trying to open these boxes that met a lot of similar criteria, but just weren't his.
So all the other times...
Overused the box metaphor.
Yeah. It was more based on our ideal world than the call.
Yeah. But like he wasn't reopening it. He was finally going, if you're done playing with your boxes, I'm ready to open mine. Like, if you're done playing with those, that he didn't let you have, thank God, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've got one for you, the one I've always had for you, and it's greater than the one that you keep trying to open.
Yeah,
and we do that. How often do we do that? Totally everybody in our lives, right?
So when the house deal fell through, I turned to Coco and I was like, we know that this is the Lord, and I'm like, what if the thing that he has is so much greater than what we thought that would have been? And then we end up in this church with, I want to be careful about what I say.
To be fair though, like I need you to know, like you don't gotta be PC here, and you don't have.
No, it's not about PC. I want to honor people.
Mm-hmm. No, I understand that, but there is something to the processing. Like your heart's not to go after these people.
Yeah.
You're just processing through, and the language doesn't have to be perfect for those people to need to respect your process.
We ended up in a church where we found ecclesia, which I feel like a lot of the church is really lacking, which is crazy to even say out loud because that's what it's supposed to be, right? Like that's literally the Greek word that's written down in the original scriptures is ecclesia, then we turn it into something else. So in that process of this dream dying, we found the greater thing. Mm-hmm. And then to your point, even as far as now, and I think that it's in that surrender and putting down of those things. So the desire to move south was not an inherently evil desire, but every time that we pursued it, it was selfish motives. It wasn't kingdom motives, not even necessarily bad motives. Mm-hmm. But had we pursued those things to an end, we would have missed the greater thing, which is, and he would have redeemed it. We could have be living in Chapel Hill, North Carolina right now, and in a room with a great bunch of guys and doing a similar thing than what we're doing right now. But I don't think it would be this, so here we are.
Yeah.
So that was 2019. And then
when did you land here?
Yeah. And that's the thing. We landed here in June of 2023.
Okay.
Oh, so that's a big gap.
See, what's fun is I also landed here full time in June of 2020.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I figured you'd just been here for so much longer than me.
We built our house in 21. Started really looking down here in like we knew like 18, 19. We knew we wanted to be here just from helping some people move down and visiting down and being around like the Mount Juliets and whatnot. Up on like we'll call it that northern eastern side of Nashville. We knew we wanted to be down here, and and then when COVID hit, it was like, all right, we can't wait. We were much more in this like we've known since we first got married that it was always going to be that we left, and we've always kind of explored what God had for us. And when it became very clear that we were coming here, it was it was just this. All right, the timeline made a lot of sense, you know what I mean? And there wasn't a push, there wasn't a necessarily. And what's funny is like we then built the house. We jumped the gun and built the house, and then our plan was not to come full time till June of 24. And then with everything going on, God pushed our timeline. He was like, "No, you need to move now. Now's the time." So we went full time June of 23, building our house early. Wildly enough, actually, Gavin and his wife lived in our house twice. They lived in our house waiting to close on their first house. They bought that and then quickly realized his story to tell, but that they kind of jumped the gun on that too, and had said, they had gotten into the I got to fix my own problems as well. Yeah. We did, the same thing, and so they sold that. So we came down for the summer of 22, and it's funny the last day here, because we spent the whole summer in Tennessee. The last day here was their first night in their place. So we lived the whole summer together with them in our house. And then by the time we got back June of 23, they had lived in their house, relisted, sold their house, and went under contract to build in our neighborhood, which was always kind of the plan. Mm-hmm. And we had strayed away from it. Just, market changes and fears of what's going on and yada, yada, yada. And so then they were back to living in our house when we got here again. And it's just kind of funny. But, yeah, we got here. God moved our timeline up. We moved here a year early, and it ended up lining up perfectly with the ministry of kind of where the evolution of our church that had planted 3 years prior was at, and on the verge of its its own home. And yeah, it's just like you look at God's timing, and it's funny all the things we did to busybody ourselves in this linear God timeline. Yep. Of us doing all of these where we're going, no, I could do this, I got that. Well, maybe we'll do this. Maybe this is a good idea. Let me logically process this, as opposed to going like God's logic has nothing to do with logic.
Nothing.
Right. I mean, right, Isaiah, right? Like my thoughts are not like your thoughts, my ways are not like your ways. You can't comprehend, but yet we go, I got this.
I feel like that's one of the big things that we kept coming back to in our group on Wednesdays, and Mark was Jesus controlling that timeline of like, no, I have a time and a place for everything. And you don't get to push it ahead. Mm-hmm. I need to be here on this, and just managing that, and how little we trust him to do that.
Yep. The wild thing is we're into this crazy journey, and it's still learning that lesson.
Oh yeah.
I think it's this kind of the point that I was getting before. I think it's easy to look at like somebody who's kind of got this story. So I realize my family story is wild. Mm-hmm. When you really break it out, there's a lot going on there. Yep. And yet I'm still learning the lessons that I've already lived and walked through. I'm like having to relearn them and do it again. And I don't mean because of some failing. It's just like God there's no keeping him in a box. It is.
Well, and there's also like this, like as much as, it's like, oh, I got to keep learning this stuff. It's like, no, like, I was going like, yeah, I know you learned this, but now I'm just going to keep growing your plate, and I'm going to keep growing your plate, and I'm going to keep growing your plate. And now you just got to keep learning how to apply those things that you first had to learn foundationally what that principle was, and now you have
to live it out.
You got to learn the application of that in your life as I continue to grow what it is that I have for you in this life. And it's like, and it feels sometimes like you're redoing it, but like right in Hebrews, right? We're in the study of Hebrews right now. Right, where he's like, look, it's I think it's the start of 6, right? Hebrews 6. I think it's Hebrews 6, where he's like, look, like the foundational stuff, right? The laying of hands and the foundations of salvation, like all those things we need to put away. That's all. That's foundational belief. Like that's childish stuff, and it's time for us to move on to a grown up spirituality if the Lord wills it, and it's. And that's it. Just to me, that's what that is, right? That's that manifestation of it. Is just like as God continues to multiply and God continues to grow, right, and to trust you with more and to keep giving you more abundance. It's relearning that real life application of those basic foundational principles that you once learned, but now it's you learn basically how to manage somebody, but all of a sudden now you're the CEO of the company with 1,000 employees. Like you're just relearning how to apply those basic principles that you had once upon a time learned, So, but that's got to happen. I think if you're not continuing to go through those, that evolution of application of your faith, like, then you're not growing. You know what I mean? And now you're really stale, right? You're that lukewarm, spit you out of my mouth believer. So, but Nah, dude. So, man, you want to go into coffee?
I was gonna say I want to hear about coffee.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys, you're here, June of 23. You don't own a coffee company.
No, we do.
Okay.
North
you already
Arrow's
own it.
Approximately 2 years old.
Right now?
Yep.
Okay.
March 1st. March 1st is our official.
Okay. So
birthday.
March 1st of 22. So you buy. You clearly like the rewind button. Explain that you got here June of 23.
There's
a gap
because there's so many threads to pull on.
Yeah. Explain your gap year.
All right.
So, I like that gap year. Explain your gap year
Man,
and how you got a coffee company going and then you landed here.
I kind of want to share how we finally got the green light to go 4 years later.
Okay.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. So that 2019 is when we first start hearing a call for Nashville, and with that, we're like going deep in this church, in this ecclesia, and to the point where like I'm getting involved in leadership. My wife and I are both in the worship team, and we're discipling other people, and yet we're like we're hearing this call to Middle Tennessee, and it's like we don't know how to reconcile these two things because we almost feel like we're being not faithful where the Lord's had us because we know we're being called somewhere else. We've always been transparent with our leadership and our friends about the call, but still there's a real wrestling in tension. So I finished. So when I got laid off, the Lord said, do not take a job. This actually ties into the coffee thing. So this is good.
Okay.
It's a good segue. He said, do not take a job, go back to school. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Wanted to go back to school anyway. And, I'd rather go to school and not have a job.
Go back to 2019 when Coco's like, hey, I thought you were going to keep doing this.
Yeah, except
you were going to go back to school.
Except now I don't have to do it with a job.
Yeah, right on.
I could actually go to school and just do school. So, which is wild, so that was 2020. I go back and finish my undergrad. And then, as I'm wrapping up my undergrad, my close friend and the pastor of our church, Andrew, says, tongue in cheek, he's like, do you think you'll go for your master's? And I hadn't even considered it until that point. And I was like, I never really thought about that. So I started praying, like, should I go for my master's? And the Lord gives me a dream. And in the dream, and it's the month I'm finishing my undergrad. And in the dream, there's a group of the ministry leaders from the church, and we're in this room, and there's a gentleman in a blue shirt with white hair, and he's sitting in a chair, and we're all like horseshoe sitting on the floor, and each one of us is giving an account of our ministry, what we're doing in the church to this individual. And when it was my turn to get up and speak, and at the time I was the discipleship ministry leader.
Sure.
Pastor, if you will.
Yeah.
From our conversation the other day.
For sure.
And I started talking. We were essentially building out a discipleship. I hate programs. I hate curriculums, but there's still value in them. And we were getting ready to launch small group discipleship. So I'm in my dream, I'm giving this briefing. And as soon as I start giving the briefing, he stands up and he says to me, when are you going to get your master's degree so you can keep your church? But he wasn't just talking to me. He was actually talking to everybody in the room. And everybody in the room was either in an undergrad or had just finished an undergrad. We have a lot of academics in our church, which is crazy. Because this is like one of those crazy charismatic churches where it's like, there's flagging and there's tongues and there's demons coming out. And yet everybody's in school. And I knew that dream was an invitation. There was no doubt about it. At first, I was offended. I was like, that sounds kind of religious. You need a master's degree to keep my church. And I was like, no, wait a minute. That's the Holy Spirit saying to go for your master's. So I start looking at schools, and turns out that Oral Roberts University, which the legacy of Oral Roberts is a Spirit-empowered legacy, and I did not want to go, not throwing shade at Liberty, but I didn't want to do my master's at Liberty because I wanted to go to a school that was more focused on Spirit empowerment than, say, doctrine, right? Turns out Oral Roberts has the perfect master's degree that I can finish. It met all my boxes for a school as far as I wanted 8 weeks classes, single classes instead of 16-week double class, all that stuff. And the timeline of the degree, I finished my master's degree 1 month before my GI Bill lapsed and I wouldn't be able to draw from it anymore. So I actually finished my master's last August. My GI Bill ran out in September. Talk about like God's provision. Grace. I would challenge anybody to find another veteran that got 2 degrees with their GI Bill because it's not designed to do that. Right. So yeah,
that's wild, dude.
Yeah, it's nuts. So anyway, we were wrapping up on so God says don't take a job, be home, go to school. So I'm wrapping up my undergrad and I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to go on staff in my church, right? Like we're going to have revival and all of a sudden our church is going to have a budget and I'm going to get hired on staff and I'm going to get ordained and, you know, all this stuff's going to happen. And then I finish my undergrad and nothing happens whatsoever. Nothing happens whatsoever.
Don't take a job.
Yeah. Well, I figured it was because I assumed that it was because I would get
right.
You know,
but again,
a pastorate.
Same thing that we all do, right? It's oh, I understand what he's doing.
I see it now.
No.
Crap.
I don't. Keep going.
So then,
keep going.
So now, I took a few months off of school, and in that December 2021, so now we're getting into the coffee origins, and we'll also touch in on the transition here. But in that December 2021, I was chatting with DJ, and he was at the time. Not sorry for sharing this because it's just the truth of what happened. He was a Black Rifle Coffee subscriber. He was getting their monthly delivery. And I was like, dude, why are you buying?
We don't support you in that, DJ.
Well, he doesn't anymore.
I know he does.
It's like, why are you buying from that company? Like, don't you realize, like, first of all, like, even if they weren't, you know, whatever, the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, like, I'm more concerned with kingdom stuff than Second Amendment, right?
Correct.
And all, you know, there's a bigger thing at play, but it was like, for me, I was like, dude, we're veterans, and what we did, like the way we served is honorable. And the way these guys present themselves is boyish and childish. It's homoerotic. They're pornifying their wives. I'm like, this company holds no value to conservatism, to Christian values whatsoever, yet the American right is like flocking towards them. And their coffee sucks. Sorry, but it does.
My biggest problem with most coffee companies is that their coffee
sucks.
It's not what campaigns they donate to, what their advertisement looks like.
Yeah, because I'll go to that crazy leftist place down on Broadway.
I have a strong belief that people with liberal arts degrees make the best baristas.
Look,
I've told him this.
People with liberal arts degrees, liberal voting tendencies, and purple hair.
The more piercings and the crazier the color of their hair, the prettier my latte is going to be.
I used to tell this joke all the time, and I don't tell it anymore because
for a good conservative coffee company.
Yeah, with good coffee. Because now I'm a barista, but I used to say, I talk to actors all the time. I tell them how I like my coffee.
It's so
here they're called musicians.
Yeah, that's the Nashville version of the joke.
Real comment, like COVID hit and everything was shut down, especially in Illinois. Like everything shut down, and I had this conversation with him and a couple of my other more conservative friends, and they're like, "Well, we're not."
Do I count as a more conservative friend of yours?
I had friends that were more conservative than you that were like, well, I'm not going to...
They're dangerous.
I'm not going to support that coffee place because they put a flag in their window or they have purple hair or whatever. And I was like, I just want to love those people. And I hope they're here on the flip side of it. They make good coffee and the people over there don't.
I still went to Limestone.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah. Well, that's because there wasn't a North Arrow next door, but...
Yeah.
We're in Illinois.
We're in Illinois.
We're in Illinois. We went to Limestone, and Enjoy and
Leah
made great coffee, and we probably fundamentally disagree on just about everything. But you know what? They weren't bad people.
Yeah. The coffee was good.
Well, they made good coffee, but they were also good humans.
Yeah,
like they were good human beings. They were good to their community. They were good to their staff. Like,
I want to touch on something. I had a lady come up to the coffee cart trailer a couple weeks back, and she said, "What's coffee for life?" We have that, on one side of our trailer. It says coffee. That's our slogan, if you will. Yep. And I said, "Well, we're a conservative Christian company, and our values." As soon as I said the word values, her whole demeanor changed. And she goes, "What are your values?" And I said, "Well, coffee for life is because we're a pro-life company, and we donate to organizations that support life, that support women choosing to keep their baby instead of kill it." And she said, "Well, what about in the case of rape or incest?" And she's like, and I'm not going to get into the whole conversation, but the point to what you're saying, her view, although it wrong and although it a deception, is rooted in compassion.
Mm-hmm.
She believes that it's compassionate to a would-be mom to offer abortion.
Right.
If there's rape, she believes that it's compassionate to a would-be mom to offer abortion.
Sure.
If there was incest involved, right? She believes that it's compassionate to offer abortion in the case of a threat to the life of the mother, which is statistically non-existent. That's always the argument I'll default to on that.
Yep.
Every pregnancy poses risk to the mom, so therefore, then we would have to offer it in every pregnancy, which we currently do. She doesn't know Jesus the way that we do. She has not, as far as I know, heard the preaching of the gospel, right? And her views don't necessarily make her a bad person. Now, the fact that she lives in rejection of the gospel, that she doesn't follow Jesus, places her under God's wrath.
Yeah.
But her views are actually rooted in compassion. And I can respect that.
Right.
I won't accept it. I'll still have the conversation with her. And I had a great conversation with her. And I got to Jehovah Sneaky the actual gospel into that conversation. But I told her, I looked her dead in the eyes. I said, I understand that your views are rooted in compassion. And I respect that. I said, but what if I told you that if you go and do the research and you realize that in the case of rape, abortion only adds to the trauma of the mom in the vast majority of the circumstances, vast majority.
Yep.
Right. And she took it. She received it. She listened to everything I had to say. And then she bought a latte.
Right.
So
but you had in that conversation, you had two people willing to engage a thoughtful and respectful dialogue.
Yes. Yeah.
Not two people that agreed with each other that could just resound each other's sentiments back at them.
Like we have here.
Right.
Both free.
No, but to that point, it's why, it's what I have found so respectful about you is just like in getting to know you, like, yeah, we may agree on a lot of things, but most importantly, we agree on who Jesus is, right? But when it comes to like our interactions with society, right? Like, look, I'm hard-headed, I'm boneheaded at times for sure, right? And nobody has better stories about that than my wife. Second in line is Gavin, right? But like when it comes down to it, like we need people that seek out understanding from other people and not agreeance, not a tolerance, but just seeks out compassionate understanding. Just seeks out to go, hey, I wanna understand you. I don't want to agree with you. I don't want to tolerate you. I don't want any of those stupid buzzwords that are just fodder for cultural passivity. I want to understand you. And that's what you did. You sought out understanding with her, and you asked her to seek understanding with you, which she was willing to do. And at the end, you had a thoughtful conversation, a meaningful conversation. And you know what? That's the point, right? Like, I'm not going to arrogant. Like when I say like we joke, like liberals, they make the best coffee. No, they tend to be coffee shop owners, right? I mean, that's the tendency. But there's a lot of arrogant, ignorant people out there that own coffee shops. I'm not coming to your coffee shop. I'm not going to spend $1 to support your ignorance. Not that I'm not willing to support your belief in something that differs from me. Also, I'll patron your business if you're a respectable, kind human being.
Yeah.
Who seeks understanding regardless of viewpoints, regardless of whatever you think my politics may be or my faith structure may be or whatever.
Well,
there's
and
so much value in
that's the only way that, and I would just say that for our quote unquote side is that we do always need to keep the gospel in view. Otherwise, there is no point. Like for me, I don't want to just seek understanding with somebody for the sake of understanding. It was so important that I was able to share with her.
Yeah.
The true gospel.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not coming away with anything.
Yeah.
Because we're immovable. We know that we're on the side of truth with this, right? But if we're not, to your point, if we're not engaging, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Because our call is simple, right? It's the command is to make disciples of all nations, teaching them to obey. So. Yeah. So anyway, back to the North Arrow origins.
Found some coffee you didn't like, and you were like, "I can do this better."
No. I found coffee I did like and wanted to get into coffee. That's that was the draw for me. So I tongue in cheek, I say to DJ, I'm like, why don't we start our own coffee company and we'll be a conservative branded company. We'll hold fast to our values, and we didn't even know what that meant. Like, but he's like, yeah, I kind of like that idea. And we had probably talked through like a dozen or so other businesses before that, because we're just like always the entrepreneur brain is dangerous place. I've got 15 new businesses starting up at any given moment.
I just gave you one.
Many of them will never come to fruition, but this one stuck, and with that.
Sorry, I was looking up the book of Joshua when he's like, so are you with us? Or are you against us? And he's like, I'm neither. I'm with the Lord. But for whatever reason, where we just joked earlier, I mean, way earlier in this about how like you love to have the Bible app because then you can go through the versions. It just like the Bible app won't load right now. It just won't load. So, but yeah, like Joshua 5, right? When he's like, are you with us? Or are you against us? He's like, I'm neither with you or against you. I'm for I'm with the Lord. Like, when you say our quote unquote side,
that's the conservative liberal side,
right? We've gone down that rabbit trail together. Like Jesus isn't showing up taking sides. He's gonna be like, I'm with any of you. I'm with God.
Get with me,
right? Like, there's a lot of crap that's thrown into politics that is really just good versus evil, 100%. But if you think that Jesus is showing up and standing on one side of the aisle versus the other in the house, like you're out of your mind.
So here's what Jesus did. Man, one of my professors was so good with it. He wrote this whole thing about Jesus had a framework and how Jesus saw the future. And you have a couple of major players in the first century. You've got the Pharisees.
Yeah.
Okay. You've got the political, the Rome. Right. You've got the Roman political machine, and you've got the Zealots. And in first century Jerusalem, those were the three big ones. And when Jesus looked upon Rome, he saw the destruction of Israel. He saw the destruction of the temple, which he prophesied. So we know that Jesus saw into the future to a degree, because he said the temple would be destroyed.
Yeah.
And when he looked to the Zealots, he saw the crushing of Israel by Rome, because they would provoke Rome to destroy the temple. And when you look at the Pharisees, not good at all. I mean, it was totally apostate from what God had ordained. And the Pharisees would also acquiesce to Rome in many areas. So what he saw is these three primary paths for ancient Israel. And every one of these paths leads to the destruction of the nation of Israel. There was no path presented.
Right.
And he goes to the cross. Jesus created a different path, and we have the same paradigm in America. As and I identify as conservative, whatever. This conservative versus liberal. Yeah, I know.
What are your pronouns?
You identify as a conservative. Tell me your pronouns.
Yeah. Warrior King. Those are my pronouns.
Love it. Yeah. Battleship is what Gavin's.
My baby identifies naval destroyer. Swift and powerful are her adverbs.
Powerful. Yeah, she's not born yet, so she identifies as swift and powerful.
I think on social, North Arrow's pronouns are Cov Fefe. But my point is that there's even on the Republican side, even on the conservative side, it's still not Jesus's way. There is a creative path that is the way of the cross, and that's the way that we're to go.
100%.
Right. Man, we can go deep down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, we can. All right, so we got North Arrow Coffee.
So tongue in cheek, DJ, let's start a coffee company, and 3 days later, and I was like, oh no, I think I just wrote a check.
3 days later.
Yeah.
3 days.
Yeah. Okay. The 3 days. There's a little symbolism in there.
3 days later in March.
Biblical symbolism.
3 doors down.
And now I'm like, oh wait, you told me not to take a job. And now I'm talking to my buddy about starting a company. So I started praying. I was like, Lord, I don't know what to do. Like, I really want to do this, but I don't know if you're in this, and if you're not in this,
how did you feel about it?
I felt like I needed God to speak.
I understand how you're feeling, and what I felt in the past is this, and what I found is just felt found everybody.
Yeah.
Get through life that way. So you're praying like, but you were at least mindful of like, God, are you in this? And if not, strip it away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And 3 days into this process, I'm reading through Revelation in the morning and journaling, and I got to go back and look this up. I tell the story and I never know which verse to reference. And I just got to go find my journal.
Well, I can't tell you because my Bible app won't load. So
no, I'd have to go through my journal to know what I was reading that particular day. But there was something I read in Revelation, and I felt this heaviness over the abortion issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a mission statement for North Arrow, and I knew that came from the Lord, and I knew, so I didn't feel it, I knew it, right? And I knew that there was a release to go into this, but that this was his company, that it wasn't my company, and that this was the hill that I don't even say, a lot of people use the saying, I'll die on this hill. We're not going to die on this hill. We're gonna freaking destroy the enemy on this hill, So I sent our mission statement over to DJ, and I said, hey, bro, I want to do this with you, because you're my friend, and we would talk about so many businesses together. But I'm really struggling. I didn't say all this to him, but this is what's going on in my head. It's like I'm really struggling with whether or not I'm supposed to step into business right now. I want to do it with you. And I was praying this morning, this is what I got. And if we're going to do it, it's this or it's nothing at all. And he fired right back. And he's like, let's do it. Him and I have, over the years, since we met back in 2018, have had so many conversations where I would go to his office with French press. I'd usually make a French press.
You could have come tonight with a French press?
I don't even French press. French press is beneath me now.
Wow.
I've evolved.
It's quite the
snobby
spawn.
I'm 2 for 2 on alienating my customers today. I posted, did you see the thing I put in stories about buying pre-ground coffee?
No.
It's so funny. But I used to make a French press around 10 a.m. And the way DJ and I became friends is my desk was right outside his office. And
Instagram or Facebook?
Instagram stories. And he saw this apparatus on my desk, and he pokes his head out, and he's like, what's going on here? I was like, oh, I'm making coffee. It's a great way to enjoy coffee. He's like, I'm like, you want some? Because it was always extra,
Yeah.
And that's how we became friends. And we'd start.
Crazy. Dangerous. Dumb. Stupid. Crazy. Dangerous.
So the caption says brewing with pre-ground coffee, and it's
all the characters from Saved by the Bell.
It is Saved by the Bell, yeah.
When they do the commercial for like
drugs,
doing drugs,
yeah, exactly.
Right. Except you definitely
I posted that in stories, and I was like, oh crap! I've seen so many orders come through for medium grind. Like I just alienated half my customer base.
But can we discuss?
It's important that you tell them they can be better.
But
listen, if you're one of my customers and you're buying ground coffee, I've been there.
Yeah.
There is hope for you.
I like how every time you've got like a PSA, you just stare
straight to the camera.
Right into the camera. But like shout out to Taryn Floor Hair.
Yeah.
I'll stand in the rain for North Arrow Coffee.
She did. She stood out in the rain.
Look, that's commitment.
And I had to pull an extra shot because I wasn't dialed in, and she just, yeah.
Boom. And then White Cactus Salon. Do we think Taryn works at White Cactus Salon?
She definitely works there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So best cappuccino I've ever had. You've got some people that love you out here, bro. Let's
So 3 days later, you're going to start this.
Yeah. So I sent him the message. Oh, well, again, back to the flashback. Yeah. So many of our conversations, I can't tell you how many times DJ and I would be talking about faith, and he would just straight mid conversation, he'd be like, what do we do about abortion? This is before we even thought about coffee company. And I'm like, dude, he's like, we took an oath, man. And he's talking about like, we're men of action. I'm a Marine and he's a Ranger. And how do we reconcile our oath with the fact that we have the legalized and encouraged wholesale slaughter of innocent people in our country? And he would bring this up very often, and I would just kind of reel him in and be like, DJ, it's just not Jesus' way. I know it's evil. I know it's dark, but this isn't Jesus' way. And I know that we took an oath, but we're released from that oath by the new covenant that we're in and all this stuff. So when he said that he was in, I knew that he was authentically in, because this is something that I knew was close to his heart as well. And that's so then with that, it was all right, we're going to start a coffee company and we're going to donate 15% of our sales to pro-life causes. And, we put in our language to ending abortion. And I do think that ending abortion is attainable. I absolutely believe it. It's, man, if you look at what's happened just in the last 2 years, 3 years ago, you never would have thought we made this much progress in the pro-life movement, right? And I believe that that North Arrow is just a small part of this, but that as a community of believers, that I believe that we're going to see the end of abortion in our lifetime. That's definitely the trajectory that we're heading on. So that's how we got North Arrow. We launched as an e-commerce brand in March of 2022. And with that, our website, people who shop our website, they enjoy roasted to order specialty grade coffee. What does that mean? That means that our coffee is actually graded 80 points or higher, which is far superior to anything you'll buy in a supermarket. And that being roasted to order, that you're going to get the best, freshest coffee available when it gets to your mailbox. It's at peak time to start consuming it. And you know, one thing I kind of like to address is I've seen people comment, oh, they're just jacking their price up to cover the donation. And the fact of the matter is we're not. And our books are public, dude. I have not made $1 off this thing.
You know, what's funny is I actually, my story the other day, last week, I was getting coffee from you out in Fairview, and I'd gone on my story and was talking about how his coffee didn't cost enough. I thought I accused him of, like, I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, stop. Like, what? Why is this only $4? Why is it only $5? Like, everywhere else is charging more. And he's like, no, this is fair compared to, like, you know, like, however I don't know how you gauge the market, but
yeah.
Like, and he looked up a couple things and he's like, yeah, no, this is all fair, you know, based on blah, blah, blah. And I was like, there's no way. Like, why are you not charging more? Yeah. Like, no shade. Like, I stopped and got coffee today because your trailer wasn't around. I stopped and got coffee today at a different place that shall remain.
Where'd you go?
No, we can't do that.
No, of course we can do that.
No, because
there's great coffee shops around
here. Because what comes next isn't going to be good. What's about to come out of my mouth isn't going to be good
for coffee.
So I stopped and got us coffee this afternoon, and not only was the coffee not very good, but it was outrageously expensive. See, this is why I'm not putting their name on it.
Was it a trailer?
No, stop it. No.
Is it a chain?
No, it was in. It's a massive warehouse. Okay,
they have
and
locations.
It's got not good. It's got Centurions on the roof. It's fine.
Wait, no, we'll tell you afterwards. Anyways,
yeah. So by the way, I'm giving you a bunch of crap so that you can't understand who it is. I made all of that up, but no, I'm not telling you this. What's the name of the company you worked for? Yeah, there you go. Easy guy.
We'll tell you afterwards. Anyways,
I'll tell you afterwards. Don't worry.
He walked in and he apologized for my coffee as he handed it to me. And he goes, I get it. This is way too light.
Dude, we can get you some K-Cups that'll be better
and I was like,
whatever that
what's in it? So I'm a cold brew guy. I like to taste my coffee with
with some Kingdom cold brew.
With a splash of milk. And it's funny, like we
told you rule number 2: don't touch your microphone. Actually, it was don't lick it, but that meant don't touch it.
It was one of those things where it's like, clearly, if the barista had cared, they would have been like, "Hey, we're running out of cold brew. I get it. It's the end of the day. I don't have enough for a extra large. I can give you a medium of it." And instead, they were just like, "I'll just fill up the rest with milk. It'll be fine." Most people like milk. It's delicious.
I was like, "Look, I want a little bit of flavor." I said, "So you know what? I'm gonna go large, 24-ounce cold brew." And I want
all right without saying the name. Where pumps, in proximity to here? Where is this place?
2 pumps. It's
within
down the street. 5
to 10 minutes.
Yeah, look, it's 2. I said, look, I want 2 pumps of raspberry, 2 pumps of raspberry, 1 pump of white chocolate, and a splash of almond milk in mine, and a splash of regular milk in the other one. And they
sounds
weren't
disgusting.
Oh no! Little flavorful cold brew because it's still cold brew and then it's got a little bit of flavor, right? So on a 24-ounce, you're normally going to get 4 to 5.
Is this a franchise?
It kind of like depends.
Do they have
Are you
food?
a football player?
They do have.
They have edible things.
Yeah.
Is a big part of their menu edible?
No,
it's partially, but I count drinking as eating.
They don't ask you, what would you like to eat with them?
Okay.
Yeah,
there's no fries involved.
I do have
no tater tots.
Ooh, I love tots.
So I will say this: it wasn't Starbucks.
Hold on, are you going to offer tots at your trailer?
No,
I love tots.
Get the deep fryers going. It wasn't Starbucks.
Air fryer,
I do have a theory that Starbucks purposely makes bad coffee, so that you do have to spend an extra $5 making
to
it
get a foo-foo
drinkable.
latte.
No, that's not true. I actually Starbucks isn't a coffee company.
Yeah,
they're a bank.
Yeah,
Starbucks Play right now is they're a bank. I'll break that out in another podcast.
Okay. Yeah, I want to hear that.
I was about to say that's
Yeah.
Next time on Days of Our Lives.
And we can speaking of next time, we can dig in more next time, but like, do you know where your 15% goes?
Yeah, because I write all the donation checks. So our 15%, so high level, 30,000 foot view, we look for gospel centric pro-life organizations.
Okay.
Not exclusively nonprofits,
Yeah.
although mainly nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
Our main thing is that we're not trying to be pro-life for the sake of being pro-life. The gospel is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
So even though our primary mission is pro-life, we support organizations that are ministering pro-life in the context of the truth of Scripture.
Do you want to say the primary organization that you guys are supporting right now?
Yeah, absolutely is Hope Clinic in Nashville. We donate probably 50% of our current donations go to them, and that is because they are a beacon of excellence in the in the pro-life industry, if you will.
I just got a year on this text. So we just got invited to Hope Clinic's Smoke on the Water golf outing on May 7th.
I didn't even get invited to.
You're on the text. You're on the text. It's Hope Clinic invites cigar enthusiasts and those just wanting a fun night out to our 27th Smoke on the Water event. 27th. How about that?
Pretty good.
Smoke on the Water event. Come enjoy the finest cigars, complimentary beer and wine, a delicious meal, live music, and a silent auction, all to support the women and families we serve. Event manager Mary Drake Chavez.
So tell me about them. Like, what's their deal?
Man,
that's wild. It's just funny that as we're getting to who you support.
Hold on, I'm texting.
He's RSVPing right now.
I'm texting Mary Drake because maybe we'll bring the trailer out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we could do a little cigar and coffee matching if they want.
She is who's on that invite. Yeah. So
cool.
And we'll work that out on that text afterwards about figuring out. Let's do a table and we'll fill a table full of people.
Yep.
It's like $1,500 for a table, so we can do that.
Easy day.
Yep.
So yeah, what's great about
make Adam Darby pay for it. Love you, Darby.
We just did a banquet table with them.
All right, so tell us about Hope Clinic. We're still recording it.
Yeah, so what I love about Hope Clinic, and they do everything to excellence.
Okay.
And they are spirit-led. That place is steeped in prayer.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just have like a pregnancy center model that gets a woman in and gets her to do a sonogram and runs them through a script. They're really dealing with like the whole individual. And when I say, the word holistic gets tossed around a lot these days, and it can almost sound it can almost sound new agey. But when I say holistic, we're talking dealing with the whole individual. So holistic means whole, the entirety of. And in order to deal with the entirety of an individual, we need to assess the spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And that is absolutely a key component in what they're doing. They treat the families with dignity and respect. They empower them to choose life. Kaylee, who runs the Hope Clinic, is led by the Holy Spirit. And we've had the opportunities to connect with a lot of pro-life organizations since we started this company.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get into the comparison game, but I feel that a lot of organizations are not operating in that level, where in other places that I've seen, it's more like mundane, and we're just kind of pushing through, and the mission's great.
Mm-hmm.
And they even pray and stuff like this, but there's just like something missing.
Yeah.
There's not that enthusiasm, that joy of the Lord that comes with truly being in His will,
Yeah.
And I see that in Hope Clinic. And then I always, there's another organization that we donate to as well, which coincidentally is another Middle Tennessee. They're out of Hendersonville, and it's called Save One. And what Save One does is they minister the gospel to people who have had any involvement in an abortion, whether intentionally or not intentionally. So a mom who's chosen an abortion, a dad who's forced an abortion, a parent who was a victim of abortion because their kid did it without them knowing. And they minister healing to people through the lens of scripture and the gospel. So that's another example of an organization that, and how is that, how does that help with the pro-life movement? Well, the fact of the matter is that a lot of the time, the people that they're ministering to have had an abortion and are on their way to 2, 3, 4, 5 abortions. Sure. And when people experience forgiveness and healing in the Lord, you're actually cutting it off at the generation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, those are the types of organizations that we donate to. And at this point, we also donate to Abby Johnson's ministries, Pro-Love Ministries. They help women exit the abortion industry. So they're giving an out to people who. So I don't know if you're familiar with Abby Johnson's story, but they did a movie about her. She was a director of a Planned Parenthood, crunching numbers, riding a desk. One day she gets called into a procedure, and she's faced with the reality of what she's been working to support, and she quit. And she's become a major voice in the pro-life movement. She's actually been so cool to us. We reached out to her within a month of opening and said, hey, we kind of need like an influencer or someone to talk about us. And she's like, yeah, whatever you need, just let me know. And every once in a while, she does a little shout out to us on social media and stuff like that. But yeah. So Abby's thing is helping people exit the abortion industry, which is great because it's redemptive for those people. But it also puts so the abortion industry is a business.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. So anything that disrupts the business model is actually beneficial in the fight. So when you get abortion workers to exit the industry, you're causing turnover and you're putting a strain on those organizations. It's actually a tactic. I love that tactic.
I mean, it's the abortion industry is much more than just a business, though.
Yeah,
but it is.
But at the end of the day, it's driven by money.
Oh,
and when you go after what causes a Planned Parenthood to close is when it's not profitable. So when you can actually affect the bottom line of an organization enough that it can't make money, it will stop doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
Especially because they don't actually hold any real values. There's going to be those people that will volunteer their time for that, but most of these people are in it for the money. So, yes, it's a spiritual war. I see you turning, bro. Yeah, so that's who we donate to. We're always open to new partners, and we're gonna be kicking off a campaign over the next year to start reaching into other areas and finding new donation partners and stuff like that too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're hoping to kind of scale that part as we grow.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I'll say I'll encourage you that your fight is not only fighting the pro-life cause, but you are fighting you really are fighting the anti-racism cause.
Oh, dude.
Margaret Sanger's history and all of that deserves a deep dive by anybody that's never made it. And they don't. If I tell somebody what to think about Margaret Sanger and her intentions and why Planned Parenthood really exists, then it's just my opinion and it doesn't matter. I'd encourage anybody to take the deep dive down who Margaret Sanger was.
Yeah.
And I believe that when someone tells you who they are, you should trust them. Right?
I mean, why would they lie about certain
I watched a documentary that says she was just very passionate about the specific thing and just rode the coattails
she was very passionate about
eugenics.
Quelling. Yeah, no kidding. She was very passionate about quelling any development or growth in any ethnic culture. And that, I mean, heck, you can go back to her literally speaking specifically about why it is that if you walk into a Planned Parenthood community or Planned Parenthood center, you're going to find, you'll be hard pressed to find a white male sitting at the desk. And that's intentional.
Yeah.
It's a very sad history that everybody should do their own research on. And I don't need to go on my own diatribe. That is one of the more things in our history that people are so muted to, and it blows my mind. Margaret Sanger deserves her own Nuremberg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
it's evil, dude.
Pure evil.
Yeah.
She
yeah.
is a
So
filth of life force.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you're kind of reacting to what I said about going after the business model.
No,
and,
but
and,
to your
and
point,
it is a tactic, but you're right. It is also a power and principalities issue. This is a spiritual war that we're in.
But this is why I say, like, to your point of, while you may be, not that I think you've boiled it down to this, while the general perception is going to be that you are fighting a singular cause, you just doing the work of the Lord,
Dude,
building the kingdom as He builds it.
We could dig into the statistics and where the Planned Parenthoods are concentrated and what demographic of people are experiencing the most abortions. Yeah, there's clearly a racist agenda behind it.
Oh, 100%. And it's sad too, because the people that are anti-Planned Parenthood are then just victimized or villainized as these racist things, and it's like
it's a big deception.
Man, you got to look at it, and it's and that's our prayer, right? That people would just see based on their own understanding, that they would not their own understanding, that on their own merits they would go and look into it, and that they would find Jesus in there, and they would find His understanding.
Yeah. So, and that brings me to another example. There's a local guy, Scott Hord. Familiar with that name?
No.
So I believe he used to be a pastor, and the Lord gave him a burden for the unborn, and he, Scott Hord Ministries, he goes to Planned Parenthoods, and every week he's posting a testimony about a woman who chose life, and that's another simple type of ministry. They go out and they advocate on the sidewalk.
Yep.
Going
out and offering conversation and love and compassion to people in a terrible spot.
Yep.
And just being an opposite influence from what is readily available to him.
Yeah, and even and he's done many posts like this, but the funny thing is it's not even funny. It's just the truth thing is that very often he will encounter a mom who's going into a Planned Parenthood to get abortion, and she won't do it. And then the follow-up message is always the thing that gets me. I'm so glad you were there today. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right?
Yeah.
So many people are choosing abortion based on fear, based on circumstances, and nobody is speaking sense into them. Mm-hmm. And then they encounter somebody like Scott who just says some simple truth, preaches the gospel, loves them, and then 24 hours later, they're thanking him for saving their baby. Yeah. And what does that tell you about the state of somebody who's desperate for an abortion, but how close they actually are to truth? Mm-hmm. They just need someone to speak it. So, yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man.
Glad we did it. We got to clearly.
There's a lot, dude.
Well, we're gonna have to go back through all the times that we went. All right, that's another conversation. All right, that's another conversation. We'll just schedule these things out, and it's gonna be like an eight episode
8-part
series.
I'm in for it.
But no, man. Like to encourage you, man. Like love what you're doing. Love where your heart's at. Dude. Love your family's reckless, abandoned pursuit of Jesus and His call and His walk, and significantly less important, I love your coffee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
cool, man.
But the coffee is good, man.
Should we do a promo code for what's the name of the podcast?
It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter 10.
No, so it's so it's Crossroads, right? So
Crossroads.
So I think there's something to.
Cool.
Or sorry, you know what's funny is it was going to be Crossroads, and then can I tell you the funny story about this? It's short. I was going to name the podcast Crossroads. I was first going to name it Working Title, and then I saw something else was Working Title because I didn't want to name it. I feel like naming it is a creative thing that I don't have. So then it was like Crossroads Podcast, and then I was like, I can't do Crossroads Podcast, and why can't we name it Crossroads Podcast? Because the Britney Spears movie, when we were all in junior high and elementary school.
There was a Britney Spears movie?
Yes, called Crossroads. And it's and I've never seen it, but
news to me.
It's the thing that popped into my head immediately, and I can't shake it. So then I was like, I'm gonna call it the Cross Street Podcast.
Like a Polaroid picture.
I'm a little nervous about that because I have old previous podcast with an old couple buddies.
We'll just piggyback on it.
That was the Cross Street Pub because I lived on Cross Street and I had a great bar in my basement. And we used to get into really, really passionate fights about like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie and stuff like that.
Oh my goodness.
Of course it is.
Clearly the answer is yes.
Yes, of course it's of course it is. Mark, now you know. But so it's going to be the Cross Street podcast simply because like I think it's super
Crossroad.
important. No, Cross Street.
It's going to be Cross Street?
Yes, Cross Street podcast is simply that.
Cross Street Pub.
No, the Cross Street podcast.
Pubcast.
No.
The Pubcast. The Cross Street Pubcast.
I have distracting friends. I have distracting friends. No, like the Cross Street podcast is like where like right, what's a cross street, right? It's an intersection. And like where what I have intended for my life intersects with what Jesus calls on my life is where everybody's story comes from.
Okay. Got it. So go over to North Arrow Coffee and use code CrossStreet15 for 15% off your first North Arrow Coffee order.
We got an extra 5% out of that.
It was the Crossroads 10. It became the Cross Street 15.
Yeah, well, I just remembered that we have a little bit more margin to play with this year on discounts.
Well, well, what's funny is that he knows I'm anti-discounts. He gives me like a friends and family discount, and I get mad at him for it because I'm like, so then like he gave me a discount the other day, so then I tipped him 100%. And by the way, it was like a $7 tip, right? So it's not like I gave him anything amazing, but it was that like, no, dude, like get out of here. I want to support my friend's business. I don't want deals, homie. When
I need free coffee.
When you franchise trailers and you guys are independently bankrolling the closures of Planned Parenthood centers, I want discounts, bro. I want free bags of coffee. Yeah. I want the goods.
That discount wasn't for you. That was for your listeners, so they'll buy my coffee.
Dang it. You did say for your first order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm screwed.
Yeah, we rope them in with the 15%. And then we hit them with marketing emails to get them into a subscription. That's the strategy.
Well, do, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Love you, man.
All right, so you're going to make Cross Street 15 work?
Yeah, I'll set it up.
Dope.
Yeah,
Cross Street 15.
before this airs.
All right. Well.
You got 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months.
No, Ashley's got these teed up. This will go out pretty quick.
Yeah, Cross Street 15. It'll work.
I like it.
I'll give you guys I'll give you a link. We'll set up an affiliate account and track it. And then 15% of all the sales associated with this podcast, they'll go straight to the Hope Clinic.
Dope. Let's do it. And then we're going to have to, can we get this gear mobile to the Smoke on the Water golf outing?
Do you have a hammer to put the anchors into the trailer? I mean...
No, yeah, right. Shout out to Blake. No, we've got all the tripods and everything. Yeah. We can
pop them off.
Maybe we pop these things off. We go set this up remote, and we do a little fun podcast out at the golf outing and invite people out. We'll see if that can work.
Yeah, that could be fun.
But cool, man. All right, brother. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, you can.
It's been real. Been fun.
Yeah, now we're done. It's been real. It's been fun.
Real fun.